Hello and welcome back to Sayanti Fine Arts. Today we are working with oil paints. This particular video is a continuation of the last video that I have posted, which I have linked in the video description below, along with all the materials and everything that I have used for it. And the last week I painted the vintage background, and this week I'm demonstrating how you can choose a subject matter that would be appropriate for the vintage background. However, in the last video I had shared some tips about how in various different ways, and you can use this kind of a background, how it is very versatile background that can be used in various different ways. So please watch that video so that you can figure out how to paint the background as well as how else to use this background. That's all about the background and the painting. And one more thing I want to mention, that I have chosen oil paint to paint this particular painting and acrylic for the background. However, you can do whatever you want with as far as a medium is concerned. You can do the entire painting with acrylics, starting from the background to the subject matter, or the entire thing with oil paints, starting from the background to the subject matter. And the techniques will be exactly the same, just that acrylic has a faster drying time while oil paint has a better blending. So whatever you choose, whatever is your preference, go with that. And let's get on to the video now. Oh, by the way, I post videos every Wednesday and Friday, so if you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing and hit the thumbs up button. Share some comments for me to improve the video quality or whatever you want to see in future, and share my video if you feel like. Thank you for watching. I'm starting off with a general outline sketch of my Ganpati figure with a water-soluble graphite pencil. I generally tend to draw out my drawings on a different sheet of paper and then transfer them using a transfer paper onto the surface of the canvas. But this was a fairly simple drawing, so I thought I'd rather do it directly on the canvas. And for acrylic paintings especially, and watercolors, I like to use a water-soluble graphite pencils so that my pencil lines don't show, but in case of oil it does not matter. Now I'm starting off with titanium white and blocking the highlight areas, and then I am pulling in some yellow oxide and putting it around the surrounding areas. Now I am bringing in some purple to that mix and blocking the darker shadow areas. So I am using the same four colors that I have used on my background, just contrasting and mixing and matching it will make this painting very different from the background and make the subject pop out in on the top of the background, even though I'm using the same four colors for both the background and the foreground. So what I'm using is an yellow oxide, some kind of yellow, any kind of yellow would work. If you have a cad yellow, that would work as well. I'm using some raw umber, purple, white, and in some areas I have used a touch of black, but that's very rare. Mostly I've used these four colors, and all I'm doing is building contrast. So in the background where I have darker colors already, I am putting lighter colors around it, and where I have lighter colors, I'm putting darker colors around it and for my subject to build that contrast so that the subject pops out on top of the background, like I previously mentioned. The best part of this painting was doing the eye, which was kind of building and the contrast between highlights and shadows and lights and darks, and adjusting so that certain areas are much lighter than the rest of the areas, and then building in the details wet on wet. That was the most fun part for me in the entire painting. So you can see I am showing it at great length to you as well, because I wanted to share that fun part with you as well. So building in the layers of on top of the others while the entire paint is still wet
was key to building this depth and the three-dimensional look in the eye of the subject. You can see that I'm continuously adding some highlights in some areas, and against the highlights I'm using the darks so that the contrast stands out. And I'm blending in all the lights and darks to a slow gradient, and so that it doesn't go sharply from white to dark purple. It goes into a slow blending and transitions from light to dark or dark to light. Now adding some of the details on the trunk area. Unfortunately, that the camera is a little bit below the angle, so it's not capturing everything, but it still gives you a good idea about what I am doing. Adding in some lighter areas, and once again adding darker areas against the lighter areas, and making the contrast hyped up. So whenever I'm adding these details like you would see in sculptures, again I am building it light against dark. If I'm putting dark at the background, then I'm putting light in the front, and obviously blending and making a slow gradual transition from light to dark. Adding some more details and some more works on that is more like a decorative stuff on the figure. And you will see once you see the completed painting that these are little tiny things that actually made the whole painting click, the whole painting come together and look like a sculpture. Because that is what I was trying to achieve here, trying to show you one way of using this kind of a rustic background, because it is a very rustic, very vintage kind of background. So sculptures really work well on this kind of background. Adding a little bit more decorative detail on the trunk before I would move on to the crown area and finish that part. Now I'm moving over to the crown, like I said. First, I am building in the darks and the general motif of and layout of the area with the purple. And once I have the general design of the crown laid out with my purple, I'll come back with the lighter colors of mix of yellow and white and brown, depending on where I want to put the lights and darks to finish off. And once again, the focus would be on where the source of light is, and based on that building the contrasts. This painting is heavily dependent on building contrasts of the same color, because in the background and the foreground I've used the same colors. So this is a very good example where it is not typically a monochromatic painting, but it has still used a very limited number of colors, so you can understand how using the same palette for background and foreground you can still make it work just by using the contrasts. Adding in some last bit of details, and before I finish off, some more highlights, and there you have the finished paintings. Hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed painting this.